Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to remake the ring world that I posted in Twitter and Instagram just to show you how you can do it with the version that you have. Okay, so I'm going to start by creating the base mesh and then just rotating this to face the negative y-axis, so that's the front of Blender, and then scaling this towards that axis. Removing these faces, selecting this boundary edges and then WS to multiply or subdivide, I mean. So the highlighted letter is the shortcut key or the head key. WS, selecting them again, WS, and use loop tools, circle or relax. Let's try circle. Okay. And we're going to give this a thickness. You can use um, creative flows draw modifiers, but this will add a modifier and then we still have to um, apply this. So I want it to be direct. So Control F. This is the face special menu in edit mode. And then you go ahead and use solidify faces. So the highlighted letter is S. So Control F S. And then press F9 to bring up the redo panel, because the last operation we did was the solidify faces. Okay, and increase the thickness. Okay, so I'm going to check the normals. Okay, it's good. So red will be the inverse. Okay, on smooth. Let's give it additional edge flow. I'm going to use two operators to do this, and this is going to be partition mesh to partition the uh, ring structure, or split it into multiple objects and then use random slice to create the buildings. But first, I think this is too thick, so I'm going to use Alt S. Okay, so navigation wise, so let me just tell you what I'm using for navigation. Okay, so to center to create a pivot point for the rotation in the view part, you can see that rotating somewhere. The view, I think the pivot point is somewhere in open space, but you can alt middle click on a surface and that will be your new pivot point when you uh, rotate the viewport. Or you can do it using the selection. You can assign the selection as the pivot point by pressing period on the numpad. And again, any surface, just alt middle mouse button click. Any surface that's underneath the mouse cursor, alt middle mouse button click. What did I say earlier? Alt middle mouse button click, and then that is your new pivot center for rotating the viewport. Okay. And you can, of course, zoom in using rolling by rolling the middle mouse button up or down, and also you can snap into angles using Alt. So for example, look at the 3D cursor. So we're going towards the front, which is the negative Y, looking to the back. And then when I rotate the view part, and when I'm almost at the at an axis, I press Alt and that will snap to that uh, axis. And it's in, I think, what's that, 30 degrees? 30-degree increment. So when you rotate, Alt, just press Alt while you rotate while you rotate the viewport, and this is using the Blender's default hotkeys. So I don't know about the other key maps. Okay, so that's how I navigate the viewports. Right now I'm pressing Alt while I am rotating viewport. Okay, so I think the most important thing is the rotation pivot point. So Alt, middle mouse button click. That's good. Then snap to increments of angles while you press Alt. You can press Alt along with the middle mouse button, or you can press Alt when you are nearing um, an axis or 30 degrees from that. There you go. Okay, so let's go back to the model. And so I can, when I want to use you can the period in the numpad, you can also use it on edit mode in the selection. You select this face and press period, that will be your new. It zooms in on the selection and that will be your new pivot point. It works on multiple selections or the middle mouse button click, which I always just select. Okay, let's go back to the task at hand. So partition mesh and oops, select faces, partition mesh, random, radial. So most of the time when I split the objects into multiple parts, I just use the radial solver. Square and walk is just there, so you can have other choices. But most of the time I just use radial. Okay, splits it into these different sections. Let's use random color so we can see the separation. And let's try and affect the seed of the randomization. I think this is something like 3. So this is because we can use more subdivision per split object than using than using the entire design, and that will of course be a slower operation. But using it on split objects will be a faster operation for the randomization. Okay, let's use the for each of the split object, we're going to use the random slice. Random slice is basically um, this. So it's really good for angular angular models, and it will start to fail once you have geometries like this one. Okay, so it will start to fail when the faces having the same plane but curving on that plane. You can see the effect right here. Okay, so but if it's curving on, I mean, if it's curving but it's using other planes, I guess the same direction but different plane like this, so it's works really good. So it's optimized for angular models. Okay, let's do this. But in this case, it's curving, but it's curving on the same direction. Okay, random slice. Going to use just this preset. Then so you can see here we have toggles for the new options, outer inner margin. I'm not gonna use that because you don't have that. Uh, but you can see here the outer margin, the margin of the selection, and then the inner margin, the margin between the sliced faces. So this is really good if you want to simulate those tiny streets. We're not going to use that. And thickness also has the toggles, depth and scale also has the toggle. Okay, we're going to use depth. You have this, but you don't have the toggle. So I'm not going to use the new addition. This will be in the next update. In a few, I will update this in a few days. And since I'm already starting the per operator tutorial. So uh, before I get to the random slice, I will pass the update. Okay. So depth basically randomizes the height of the extrusion, and then scale. We're going to just scale this with a random scale. So the good thing about scale is that if you use, even if you use too much value, uh, it will not implode or explode like using thickness. Okay, so it implodes. I mean explodes, but with scale, it just uh, basically scales the faces to zero and does not explode the vertices. They just meet up at a single. And there we go. And add some more. Okay, minimum length 6.01. So minimum length basically removes all the thin sliced faces. And as you increase this, the sliced faces becomes more squarish or rectangular. So something like point one, you know. So it removes the faces based on their shortest edge. Okay. So we're going to set this to 300 or 400. Yeah, something like that. Then click on another object and then Shift R, repeat the action. So you can still recall the redo panel, but that will be only for the repeated action, not for the action that created this past objects. Those are gone. So that is how Blender operates the repeat panel. Every action that can be undone has redo panel. So just using Shift R to repeat the action. If you did something that will have erased the last action used by the repeat action command, which is Shift R, then you can just reuse the operator again, and just remember the cut amount you used because this resets to 100 to avoid crashes for each operation. 400. Okay. Shift R, Shift R, Shift R. I think we have a really tiny, no, Shift R. Okay. So also on the next update, the outliner will be cleaner because the random object will be um, added in the same collection as the source mesh and also parented to the source mesh. You can turn off the parenting will be on by default, but you can turn it off using in the settings using this toggle here, parent to source. Okay, so we have these buildings. Let's just save this and bring I have it saved as Halo. So Halo 1. Okay, let's add some basic vertex color on this. So run over this color. I'm not gonna use sharp. This has too many details. It will probably slow down. So I'm just gonna use island. So these faces are separated. So per extruded face or building, this will have a different vertex color. So I'm gonna use no saturation percent island and just play with the volume. Okay. And then so for the UV, I'm just going to use cube projection because this is going to be rendered really far away. This is supposed to be a really big object. So cube projection is um, sufficient for this operation. Okay. Up in the grand shaders, and then I'm going to use sign material, the hard panel hard and UV, our flow panel hard UV. Okay. And then we're going to see what it looks like here. So we still have to edit the shader. Go to shading right here, shader editor. And to center everything, you can press home or select everything, pressing A and then press period in the pad. Okay, replacing this with attributes. Be sure that you have node wrangler add-on turned on in the user purposes. So you have this, and then look for vertex color, add it here, and so just gives each faces some different shading, subtle, but it's enough. Okay, now let's edit the bevel because it's too much. And then edit the scale of the texture. By the way, you can bump up the normal map. You don't have to actually, if you're just going for the look, you don't have to actually stay with the one strength. You could try 10 or more than that, just to really push those details. See how they reflect with the lighting. Okay, then it's good. And then I'm going to go to the um, brand shaders, scratches. Let's just set it to 20 or 50. Okay, now let's turn on the lights. Use this the city needs lights. Okay, 40, something like 40. If you want to see the effect of the outer scale, be sure to just pump up the factor of the inner scale to 1. Then you can edit the outer scale. Now that once you have finished with the outer scale, you can then uh, edit the edit the inner scale. I'm going to set the to darken the HDRI. Let's set a secondary star. So just selecting the ring world and then cursor to select it, and then going to track lights, create an empty and a lamp on the position of the 3D cursor, make lamp. And then, okay, let's post this first. Control Alt 0. So you basically position the camera and face the look angle of the viewport. And then I'm going to use the square, um, then 0.24. There we go. And in camera and track lights, so just scale this first and then lock it so the camera doesn't move or go away. And then let's try for 120 millimeters and basically bring this back like that. In lamp, set the type to sun and turn on use fall off and black body. So you can use Kelvin settings for flame, tungsten, fluorescent daylight, overcast shade, LCD, and sky. So I got the numbers for this from the internet. So yeah, I don't know if they're accurate, but we're going to be a bit more stylized with the lighting. So we can set the sun as yellow, and then we're going to set the other light, which is the HDRI, as blue. Okay. You can even animate this using just select the entire mesh and press space to activate the animation and random animation, rotate, and then y-axis. Then you can set the, if you increase the seed past one, then the randomization will kick in. If you use the seed number one, then every selection will have the same value. So we can, for example, if I increase this, so you can see that every piece has a different frame. And also, if I increase the rotation seed to past two, so every um, mesh selected has a different rotation. So to slow this down, we're going to increase the end frame, something like 2000, 5000, 5000, 20,000, 40,000. There we go. Something like this. Okay, so that's just the end frame of the animation. The end frame of your movie is different. If you want to record the entire cycle, so you have to have your end frame at the 40,000 mark. Okay, so let me see if we can view this in cycles. We have to we have to actually render that in order to see that, but yeah, let's just stick with stills. Shader. I mean compositor. Compositor. Center it. Use nodes and sampling. We're going to bump it up to 4. Okay, so you can't see the render window because OBS cannot capture that. But once the render is finished, you can see it here. So just watch the percentage bar right here. Going to edit the highlights. 0.5. Oops, something like 0.25. Raise this to 1. Color dodge. Brightness. Okay. You can put in more elements to this using the scatter. Going to, okay. Going to create more effects to that using the scatter operation. So there's a 3D cursor. Let's add a UV sphere, or better yet, let's add a cube and subdivide it like 10 and just 5. And then Alt Shift S to sphерify, and then just drag the mouse to sphерify it. You can use the sphere, of course, for this operation, but I just wanted to show you how you can come up with a sphere that doesn't have those ingots at the top. Okay, let's use this as for the scatter, as the source mesh for the scatter. Shift U, random scatter. You can scatter your own objects, but be sure that the topology is really light. This is not designed to scatter high-res objects. Okay, so just be sure that they're really basic. You can use mesh, just a single mesh, or a collection of objects. Point one, and then we're going to use explode this, and let's just play around the size. Minimum is 0.01, maximum 0.05. Okay, just randomize the scaling and the rotation, and then yeah, play around with the size. 0.05, 0.01, and let's increase this to 1000 points, and let's see how it looks like here. So uh, the other objects look a bit more squarish. Be helped. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to adjust the scale more using the render. So the redo panel is still there because I haven't done any action that is registered as an undo action. That can be undone in Blender. Use Control Z. So rendering the viewport is not considered as an undo action or undoable action. Okay. So the panel still sticks. So I can render and then bring up the redo panel. You can scatter shapes, of course, but be sure that they're pretty light, and don't use if the higher the resolution of the scatter object that you're going to use, just be sure to use fewer points because with higher resolution objects, using too much points can slow down or crash Blender when you're using, yeah, higher points. And also in the next update, the source mesh will be parented to the randomized result will be parented to the source mesh. So the outliner looks cleaner. Okay, but in this case, I'm going to just delete the sphere because I don't need it anymore. So with the scatter objects, you can select them. And then if you want to edit the look of this, you don't want this angle, you just rotate it around like that. So for example, let's go to render view. Okay, so you can definitely use that. I mean, rotate it to change the look of it. Okay, now those actually look like stars. So I was aiming for like debris, but they look like stars. Never mind. Okay, so let's find the partition mesh parent. The random results on this particular scene has been parented to the partition objects, but if I unify it, the parents will be lost and the objects will be of course parentless, and they will be exposed in the viewport. So right now they reach in their own partition object. So cylinder R slice. So if I select this parent here and If you control click on partition mesh to merge them, you can see the R slices have been um, separated from the tree right here, but they are still in the same collection as the source mesh, so it's still okay. So that's just one thing to look out for when using partition mesh. Okay. Um, uh, was I thinking theater editor? And this one here, we're going to, oh, that's different. Vertex color. I'm going to use emit on this and see what I get. You, and then change this to emission, shader emission. So I'm going to use, just to split the solid lights, going to use the texture being used by the random flows shader. So panel color 2. I think this is uh, the hard image editor panel color 2. Yeah, this is the hard version of the grand shader. Okay, shader panel 2 color. We'll control it with a color ramp. Copy this color, Control C. Go to the number one step, Control V, and then reestablish the connection. Okay, I'm going to try something else. Going to add um, ambient occlusion and probably use it as a lights. So we're just experimenting with the look of it. Here we go. Okay, let's try that. A warmer color. Looks good. So looks really industrialized. Like this is more it's no longer like residential. This is more like factory world. Okay, so I think that's good. That's you can put in your ships. Of course, it has to be scaled down. So if you want the buildings in particular to be tinier, then you have to use um, lower partition values for the size. So there will be more partition objects, but for each partition object that's going to be smaller, you can use more subdivision, or in this case, it slides the number of catamount. So the buildings will be smaller, and you can really create an effect that the ring world is really big. So in this case, the ring world is big, but of course, we can of course we can gauge its size using the size of the buildings. It's not that big, but it's big. If you want bigger, if you want a bigger looking ring world, the buildings need to be to be smaller. And like I said, you can use partition mesh for that. Okay, so this is my node setup. You want to copy it, just pause the video. Okay, so that is it for this video. I just wanted to show you how you can create the this kind of model using the add-ons. And yeah, if you have any questions, use the comment section below or the links in the description. Subscribe and hit notify. And thank you for watching and have a nice day.